right, good day everyone and welcome to Tribe Talks. In this installment of Expert Dialogue, we'll be looking at two questions. The first question is, what exactly is franchising and how does it differ from starting a traditional business? To help us uncover these two questions, we're honored to have Affandy Faiz, who is one of the region's leading experts on franchising. Now, Affandy is the president and CEO of Franchis Malaysia, a leading authority in franchise strategy and business expansion. With more than 20 years of experience behind him in the franchise industry, alongside with a long list of accolades in auditing, treasury, corporate finance, and multi-level marketing, Affandy's wealth of knowledge is truly unparalleled. As head of Malaysia's premier franchise consulting firm, Affandy is also responsible for the business development of franchise expansions in Singapore, Thailand, and Indonesia. He holds the distinction of being the first Malaysian to qualify for the Institute of Certified Franchise Executive ICFE program, earning the prestigious Certificate Franchise Executive designation, the first Malaysian. A dynamic speaker, his exciting, lively, and informative franchising seminars are known throughout the region, and he is sought after for panels and symposiums and media interviews. Affandy has been featured in mainstream Malaysian media like TV and regularly contributes to the franchise articles to leading newspapers. Welcome to Tribe Talks, Affandy.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you. It's my honor to be here.
Well, glad to have you here with us. Now, the first question that we have said, we want to ask Affandy, what exactly is franchising and what is the difference between that and traditionally starting a business?
Affandy just will do. Affandy, just Affandy.
Right, okay, Affandy.
Okay, so when you talk about franchising, there are a lot of definition or perspectives you can talk about franchising. Now, I always like to say this, that franchising is like a marriage. Easy to get into, but difficult to get out.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah.
Okay, now, if you look at from a fundraising perspective, franchising is one way of raising funds from the public and tell the public that you've got a concept, and if you are interested in my concept, you can buy my franchise and you can invest in the franchising. Yeah. So basically, when you look at franchising, it allows you to give people your brand name or your brand. You allow people to use the system that you have developed over the many years of you doing business. You allow people to collect fees, or sales from the business, basically that business. And of course, for doing that, you can charge people a certain kind of or type of fees, basically like royalties, marketing fees. Yeah, and you also control the way they conduct the business. Yeah, but then again, a lot of people always ask, then what's the difference between franchising and licensing? Yeah. Okay. Now, if you look at the franchising in a legal perspective, those are the definitions that I've just given you, basically. Now, as long as you allow people to use your name, you allow people to use you control the way they conduct their business, you collect some form of payment from your so-called franchisees, and you dictate the way they conduct their business. So that, in a nutshell, is franchising. Now, so what's licensing then? Now, licensing basically is any of those three except four. The moment you fulfill those four elements, then you fall into the trap of franchising. Now, in other words, if a normal business is allowing other people to use its name, and with all those elements that I mentioned, the moment it fulfills those four definitions or those four elements of franchising, it becomes franchising. So that's why a lot of people they tend to equate franchising and licensing, but it's not. Now, franchising, there is a law that governs franchising. Now, why does the government formulate the law? Now, basically, remember I mentioned that franchising allows you to collect funds from the public. Now, only a handful of business entities or institutions are allowed to collect funds from the public. Banks, for example, banks can collect deposits from the public. That means you put your savings in the banks. So in order for you to become a bank, you need to have a banking license. Direct selling. So direct selling, they're allowed to collect membership fees from the public. So in order for you to join a direct selling or multi-level marketing company, you need to become a member, and you need to pay a certain fees to join and become a member. So that's why they have got the Direct Selling Act. So likewise, franchising is also such, in a way that when the business owners want to sell their business concepts, they will definitely be asking people to invest in that business, and they will collect certain fees like franchise fees. So that's why, because of that, franchising is really regulated. In other words, we have a franchise law in Malaysia. We have a Franchise Act 1998. And that act has gone through several amendments, and the latest was 2022 now. So that's the latest amendment that we have with regards to the act. So franchising basically is, as I said, if it's not done properly, a lot of people will, a lot of business owners can get into trouble because, number one, if they are selling a franchise, first thing first, they must register their business as a franchise. They must apply, to the KUSKOP, Kementerian Usahawan dan Koperasi. Yeah, previously it was under a different minister, but now it's under KUSKOP, which is Kementerian Usahawan dan Koperasi. So you have to apply to become a franchisor, and you have to fulfill a certain obligation. You have to submit certain documentations like disclosure document, franchise agreement, operations manual, audited financial statements for the last 3 years. So that's basically what franchising is all about. So it's very technical, very heavily regulated, and that's why business owners need to be careful when they talk about franchising. In fact, a lot of people talk about franchising without realizing that that's not what they meant. They always often talk about licensing, and they tend to equate licensing with franchising.
All right, good. Thank you so much. But tell me, do I really need to register as a franchisor to register a franchise in Malaysia?
You see, a lot of companies are not aware. A lot of business owners are not aware. Often when people like their concept, when somebody likes their concept and they say, okay, I will let you have my concept, my business concept. I'll let you operate my business the way I do it. And often they come up with what you call it a licensing agreement. Again, as I said, the moment this licensing agreement fulfills the elements of a franchise, which is you allow people to use your brand name or your trade name or your service name. You control the way they do business. In other words, when you say control, example, like even telling them, okay, you must sell my products at a certain price, or you must operate in a certain location, or you must operate in certain operating hours. Now, that's what you call it control. So that's control, basically, a typical example of control. And you collect fees from people. So sometimes even the license agreement does not want to mention about fees. Sometimes they say like management fees or training fees, or sometimes they build the fees into the products that they sell to their so-called licensees. Now again, if that's determined or ascertained as fee collection, it can also fall into the trap of franchising. And of course, the fourth is you allow them to use your system. Now, when you talk about system, it's just not about having your marketing system. It's just not having your point of sale system. It's more than that. Now, in the definition, the franchise system can encompass a lot of things. It's right from the layout, the corporate identity, the marketing plan that you have or you provide to your so-called licenses. Those can be a part of your system. So that's why. So the moment any company goes into that kind of pitfalls, so they become a franchising. Now, what happens is that the licensee often will not complain because they're making monies. But sometimes the moment the so-called licensor starts imposing certain conditions, certain terms to the licensees, and often it's not in the best interest of the licensees, then the licensees start looking at the agreement that they have. Oh, this looks like franchising. Then they talk to a lawyer. Can you look at this? Or then the lawyer says, oh, this falls into franchising. Then often the licensee starts to, they start suing one another. So again, so that's why when you come into franchising, there are basically legal obligations that a franchisor needs to have. First thing first, they must register their business as a franchise, regardless whether they are a local company or whether they are foreign companies. Now, whoever wants to sell a franchise in Malaysia, they must register their business as a franchise with Kementerian Usahawan and Koperasi. So that's basically, so they must register. Now, when you register your business as a franchise and when you want to sell your franchise to the public, you have basically legal obligations that you have to observe and you have to fulfill with your potential franchises. Number one is very simple. You have what they call it a compulsory practice, which is mandated by the law, which is mandated by the Act, whereby you need to provide two legal documents to your potential franchisees, i.e., the disclosure document and the franchise agreement. Now, what is a disclosure document? Disclosure document is like a prospectus. So in others, for example, like, if any company that wants to go for a public listing, IPO exercise, they must provide a prospectus to the public. You need to buy their shares. So likewise, in franchising, that prospectus is called disclosure document. Now, this disclosure document discloses a lot of information and details about the business owner or the franchisor. It tells who they are. Do they have any litigation against them by their suppliers or by any party for that matter? So in other words, the franchisor needs to disclose whether there has been any litigation against the company for the last 7 years or so. So example, if you are buying a franchise and suddenly you see in the disclosure document, there is an ongoing litigation against that particular company. So it's up to you to decide whether you want to proceed with the transaction or you do not. And often you will always ask questions. So that's why a lot of business owners, they tend not to want to register their business as a franchise because they do not want to disclose who they are. They want to keep all these things hidden. But the law says, no, you must disclose yourself. That's why the Act is to protect the consumer, which in this case, the franchisees. So you have a lot of things like your financial statements, your audited financial statements, which you have to disclose. So when you look at the disclosure document, you can see whether the company is doing well or the company is not doing well. And if you see that the company is not doing well, then it's up to you whether, again, you have to decide. So if that company is not doing well, and you see and you want to proceed, that's the risk is on your part. So you cannot go out and blame, hey, look, I do not know that you are making losses for the last 3 years.
Right.
So you're making losses. So again, this disclosure document basically allows the potential or prospective franchisee to do their own due diligence. They can check the company name, they can check whether the company is of a good standing, and they can check their financial statements. And not only that, the disclosure document also will provide details about the business model. What kind of break-even time the business will have? 5 years, 10 years, 7 years. Now, when you talk about break-even time, you will see that typically a business will take between 5 years to 7 years, or sometimes even 10 years to even break even. Now, so that is in line with the term of the franchise agreement, which must be at least 5 years. The franchise agreement period cannot be 3 plus 2, cannot be 2 plus 3, cannot be 1 plus 1, 1 plus 1 up to 5 years, but it must be straight 5 years. So this is very critical. And often, when you see a lot of this like licensing agreements, sometimes they do it like for 2 years, for 3 years, you see, and which is again, sometimes a business takes more than that period of time to be established, to recover the investment, the initial investment that the potential franchisee has put in. So again, so that's why this disclosure document is very, very critical. But often you see in Malaysia, a lot of franchisors do not provide this disclosure document to their prospective franchisees. Often they will start by giving away the franchise agreement, and they start collecting fees. And when they sign the franchise agreement, and if something goes wrong, and if both parties go to the court, the first thing the court will ask is, have you given that disclosure document to the franchisee?
Hang on a minute here. Sorry. Now, if I want to take up the franchise from you, I may be a little bit ignorant
Sure.
in that sense, okay? And I did not ask for you to disclose. Whose fault will it be then for not asking or you not providing?
The responsibility the franchisor has is very simple. The franchisor would have to tell you, Anand, are you buying this out of your own will? Or is somebody with you? Do you have anybody else, your partner? Do you have a lawyer that you can talk to? Do you have somebody who's professional that can help you evaluate this disclosure document or this franchise agreement? So my duty as a franchisor, if I'm a good franchisor, I would advise you to do that.
But
So in other words, I will tell you, please get somebody to advise you, or do you have any questions? So in other words, that disclosure document, when I pass it to you, I will tell you, okay, normally I will have to explain to you what the items in the disclosure document are. I will tell you this, blah, 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 blah. I tell you that. Now, after you have read it, then I will ask you, do you understand what this information is all about? Do you accept what are the terms and conditions of this disclosure document? Because often that disclosure document summarizes what the salient points of the franchise agreement is. Example, the disclosure document will tell you, you will have to pay me a certain franchise fee. And that franchise fee is non-refundable. I will ask you, are you okay with that? So in other words, the moment you pay me a franchise fee, now after you sign that franchise agreement, after that 7 days cooling off period, you cannot come back to me, Affandy, sorry, I'm not interested to pursue this agreement. And I will tell you, Anand, that 7 days has been lapsed. And I'm not going to refund you your franchise fee. I will confiscate or I will forfeit your franchise fee because it's non-refundable. Now, that disclosure document tells you so. So in other words, so that's why a lot of the time when people don't read this properly, suddenly they go home, you know, like you go back and you tell your wife, honey, I bought you a franchise, you know, and I would like you to take care of the franchise. And then your wife will say, what? You bought me the franchise for our anniversary and you want me to take care of the franchise? Sorry, I'm not interested. Then what do? You go back to me and say, Affandy, sorry, my wife is not interested. But that 7 days have gone by. I said, Affandy, can I have my franchise fee back? Can you imagine what happened to your franchise fee? That 100,000 ringgit franchise fee that you paid me? I bought a BMW already. Oh, I've invested in something else already. Sorry, only it's not refundable, you know. So what happened next? But that disclosure document, if I tell you, if you sign this agreement, you have 7 days cooling off period. Now you understand that already. Now, what are the situations or circumstances that the fee is refundable? Example. Yeah. For example, like after you sign the franchise agreement and you are not able to identify a good location that you think is good for the business. And then you come back, sorry, you cannot find a good location. Or I'm not able to provide you with that good location. Now, does the agreement provide such a situation? Now, a good franchise agreement will always provide for that. In the event that you are not able, then we will terminate this franchise agreement and I will refund you a certain percentage or even nothing at all. But if I'm a good franchisor, I will refund you a certain percentage. Then, in that sense, that makes sense.
Okay, if I may ask a very naive question then. If you were to say that I need to have a certain location in a certain spot to start the franchise, would it then the onus be on you to get me that location or for me to find that location?
Okay, yes and no. It depends on the franchisor. Now, some franchisors, big companies especially, they will work with property consultants or real estate realtors, and they will give the location, parameters or criteria to these people, and they will tell them, we are expanding and we are looking at a certain type of location. So normally, these people will come to the franchisor and advise them of these good locations. Sometimes the malls approach the franchisors and tell them, hey, we have good locations in our malls. Now, so with that in mind, normally the franchisors will come, I will come to you and say, look, we have good locations in this mall. Would you be interested? But our window time is less than 14 days. You have to decide fast. Because if we don't accept the offer, this location will go to somebody else. And normally malls will do that to pressure you, to pressure the franchisor. I'll give you like 7 days, instead of 14 days, So malls does that often, yeah? So again, so these are one option. The second option is, as a franchisor, I can give you my location criteria and for you to find that location. So in other, based on the criteria. But often you will not be able to find that location.
Yeah.
You know why? Affandy, I want to find a location which is behind my house.
Near my house.
Near my house, which often is not possible because sometimes that location has been taken up by somebody else, or there isn't such a location. So that's why often the franchisors will always do this for you basically. Now that's what franchising is all about. In other words, because the franchisor command a certain perspective, a certain branding, presence or brand awareness, so malls tend to want that particular brand to be in their malls or in that particular location. Yeah. Now again, location also, there are so many types of locations. There's a type A mall, type B malls, there are shop lots, there are commercial complexes, again, all this. So often the franchisor's job is to look at all these locations, identify these locations, and see whether these locations fit their criteria, fit again their whether they are meeting their targeted audience in that particular location. So yeah, so most of the times the onus of finding that location is up to the franchisor, not so much of the franchisee.
Right.
By right, franchisees actually by right, they just the franchise tell you, hey, look, we have good locations for you. Franchisees masuk cuci tangan, that means wash their hands, wash their feet, That's it basically. So that's what franchising is all about. In other words, if the franchisee have got to find these locations, then what's the point of buying the franchise?
Correct. Now, once I move in there, right?
Yeah.
As a franchisor, you will have your layout plans, your corporate identity, exactly where my counter is, what material, down to the material.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, would you expect the franchisee then to source all this, or the franchisor will say, right, these are my list of suppliers, these are the materials, these are what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
I have to use your vendors in the franchise.
A strong franchisor, I said a strong franchisor with a strong brand, normally does not allow you to play around with their corporate identity.
Yes.
To play around with whatever that brand they are representing or they want to put forward to the public. Often, this is it, take it or leave it. Now that's why these are the terms which will be mentioned or stipulated in the discussion document. You have to buy things from me. You have to use our layout.
I can't use my own
You
contractor.
cannot use your own contractor. So you have. So again, this all mentioned. So there's no point. Often this happens. Franchisee signs the agreement, and then after they come back, can I choose my apeng? Can I choose my mutua alia to become a contractor? No. There goes the argument. And often they say, oh, I thought when I signed the agreement, you said boleh bincang. So that's why being a franchisor, you have to be very firm with your concept. Now, I mentioned strong brands. Now, sometimes, in fact, most of the times, there are a lot of local companies, with not so much presence. They just want to establish so that, when they establish more outlets, it will create awareness. So often, in the beginning, with all these so-called prospective franchises, they tend to compromise because they want to have presence. So I said, okay lah, Onan, boleh bincang lah, tak apalah, sikit-sikit I would allow you lah. But then you see, one outlet differs from the second outlet, differs from the third outlet, then it goes haywire, it becomes chaotic. And then the system will ask, hey, Affandy, why you allow Onan to have like that? Why you allow Sam to be like that? So again, that's why franchising, you have to do it right from the beginning. You cannot, that's why I mentioned it's like a marriage. You like the father. You got to whip. It's like those old days, your dad You tak balik malam, you kena rotan, you must do that. So this is how it's done. It's not like, Dad, can I do this? Okay, you can do that. But then things happen then every time. So how do you reprimand your children? How do you advise your franchisee, you cannot do this? Because you allow it in the first place. So you have to make sure that it's done right from the beginning. So that's why, as I mentioned, strong brands, take it or leave it. But upcoming, normally they tend to compromise a little bit. Boleh lah, you can choose your contractor
That's
lah.
quite dangerous, wouldn't it?
That's where it's dangerous. So this happens a lot with local franchise companies. This happens a lot.
They simply put something on Facebook.
Exactly,
They put something on
exactly.
Instagram.
So that's why in the agreement normally it's mentioned you are not allowed to have your own Facebook. Only we will have our own Facebook. If you want to have, it can still relate to my brand, but slash your even if you want to have your Facebook or your social media or marketing, it must get our approval. So in other words, it must be consistent with what we are representing or what we are
the same
selling.
story that's being told everywhere. Lah.
Exactly, same story. You cannot, so you do not want, not only that, in terms of pricing, if you are having some marketing campaign, you cannot have your own marketing campaign. You must follow our campaign. That's why there's a marketing fee involved. You collect the fees from your franchisees so that you can have a proper marketing campaign or a proper marketing plan so that it benefits everybody.
So all the artwork, everything is done by the franchisor. As a franchisee, then I just take the material.
That's what franchising is all about again.
Correct,
so in other words, I pay you this much. In other words, so that I don't have to take care of all this.
Right.
I don't have to create my headache.
Headache, yeah.
I don't have to find my own graphics guy. I don't have to find my marketing people. I don't have to find influencer to do the marketing for me. In other words, it's all done by you. So that's what franchising is all about. So in other words, as I said, it's like plug and play. I come into you, pump. So this is, but of course, as I said, now there are companies which sometimes they start franchising without being properly ready, and they always get into trouble when it comes to things like marketing, promotions. Franchises complain, what happened to the promotions? How come it's been like 3 months and there's no promotion? Okay. So if you notice, if you look at marketing, for example, or advertisement, for example, like if you look at the newspapers last time, when a franchisor advertises, and you will see a list of outlets, in the advertisement.
Right.
And sometimes even that becomes contention among the franchisees. How come my name is down there? How come my name is number one? How come my name is so small? The font is, how come, So again, how come that opening you invite the minister, or you invite the YB for his opening? For my opening, how come nobody is invited? So again, so in other words, as I said, it's like a marriage. You need to be fair. So in other words, when you launch a concept, when you launch or open a franchise outlet for your franchisee, you must make sure you must be fair to them. But unless the franchisee knows a certain minister or certain YB, he himself wants to invite this person, that's fine. But if you are doing this on their behalf, you got to make sure that you got to treat everybody fair and square. In other words, nobody's given a special treatment. So that's why it's very critical. So franchising. So in other words, your obligations to your franchisees must be equal to everybody.
We're talking a lot about Malaysian franchisors. What about overseas? Can someone from another country actually operate a franchise here in Malaysia?
Yes, they can, provided they apply. First thing, they must write into the ministry, the KUSKOP, Kementerian Usahawan and Koperasi. They must write in under Section 54. They must get approval, approval or consent from the ministry that they want to sell their franchise in Malaysia. Now, once they have been approved, then they need to register their franchise under Section 6 of the Act. So they must register their business as a foreign franchisor. Now, once they register as a foreign franchisor, they must find a local franchisee, as their local franchisee. Now, whether it's a master franchisee, whether it's an area developer, whether it's multi-unit franchisee. You see, I mentioned three different type of international agreements. You see, but a lot of people tend to look at master franchisee, master. Now, not necessarily if a franchisor, a foreign franchisor, will give you a master franchise. Now, remember, a master franchise is the responsibility is huge. You take care of the whole country, whereas you are able to sub-franchise, you're able to resell the franchise. Whereas an area developer, is only allowed to open his own outlets. In other words, they are not allowed to sub-franchise to a third party in the country in Malaysia. Likewise with multi-unit, they can open multi-unit franchises, but they will not be allowed to sub-franchises to other people. So yes, so foreign franchisors need to register in Malaysia and then find a local franchisee to become a franchisee in Malaysia. And once the foreign franchisor registers as a franchise business, their local franchisee must also register as a franchisee of the foreign franchisor.
So what are the documents? All these documents will be stipulated to be provided, right?
Yep. The first two documents which are critical are the disclosure document and the franchise agreement.
Same thing as in
Same thing as local, and as well as their audited financial statements. So in other words, why does our government have such regulation? Very simple. They want to protect the consumers, which in this case are the franchisees. So in other words, we do not want companies coming, or even local companies, you know what you call it, having all these illegal schemes, Ponzi schemes. You do not want people to come in and say, hey, I have a business, invest in me. And then after they collect all these fees from a lot of people, then they disappear. Now, what would happen to all these people that have invested in the business? So that's why sometimes even direct selling companies or multi-level marketing companies, sometimes they even pass themselves as franchising companies, because they say, oh, we are selling a franchise. Because you see, a lot of direct selling companies, they tend to be related to Ponzi schemes or pyramid schemes. So that's why a lot of these companies tend to pass themselves as franchising. Then again, franchising is a different ballgame altogether, because franchising requires a certain amount of investment. Now, that investment can be huge. It can be even go up to even 5 million ringgit per concept or per outlet. So again, it depends on which brand you are talking. Yeah, so it's very critical.
But if I want to franchise my business, how would I know whether or not my business is franchisable?
Very simple. There are a number of questions you can ask yourself. Number one, is it making money?
Well, am I making money?
Are you making money?
Right.
Is it profitable? Often you have like 3 outlets, 4 outlets, 5 outlets, and people see a long queue, long queue of your outlets. Wow, this owner must be doing very well. Now after makan, and then he said, hey boss, you want to franchise your business? I see your business. I see the tables you got 40 tables, and then the turnaround of the table is like half an hour. Wow, turn around, every half an hour turn around 40 tables. In 1 hour you got 80 tables full. 80 table, 1 table is about 2 people. Wow, that's 160. Then they count the receipt, the typical transaction. Wow, one receipt is about 30 ringgit. So 30 ringgit times that. So a lot of this, so you'll be surprised. So a lot of these people, they do their numbers. They do the numbers, then say, wow, you have a good business, So I come to you. So is it profitable? Because nobody wants to buy a business which is not going to make money.
Yeah.
So that's why this is always the $64 million question your potential franchisee will ask you. How much money can I make?
Yep. And when can I make it?
And when can I make it? And often my answer will be, Anand, if I knew it, I will not be franchising. I will do it myself. Right? But often, franchisors, they get excited. They oversell their concept.
Oh.
You know what, Anand? 5 months down the road, you can drive a BMW.
What?
Is that okay with you?
Of course.
Sure, of course. Or 3 years, or less than 2 years, you can break even.
Guaranteed.
Now, this is critical. In franchising, this is what is called...
But would that be put down in paper, though?
Good point. I'm just coming to that. So this is what you call earnings claims. You are not allowed to make earnings claims unless you can prove it, unless it's been audited, unless it's been supported by a professional party like accounting firm or even your legal, your lawyers. whom will not like to put their heads on the chopping block by saying, "Hey, Affandy, we guarantee that you will get."
Yeah.
Not many companies, not even big names in the franchising are willing to go to that extent to tell you, to promise you big, and to tell you that, guarantee you that you will make money from my business. In fact, in the franchise agreement, will tell you, we do not guarantee the success of your business
Wise.
and even your location. And we do not, even though we've been in this business for the last 15 years, we cannot tell you that this location or this business will guarantee success to you. Now, can you imagine reading that in your disclosure document? Can you imagine reading that in your franchise agreement? And of course, often people don't read all these things. They sign the agreement.
Yep.
Then after a while, when the business is not making
Yep.
money, then they go to their lawyer. Can we sue this Affandy? Then lawyer says, boss, how to sue? The agreement says is they don't
He
guarantee.
told me, ma.
Exactly. So good point. So that's why what is disclosed, because that is part of disclosure. So if I tell you that you can break even less than 3 years, that statement can be held against me.
Correct.
So you better make sure that you record this statement.
Okay, this is his word against yours.
Exactly. So in other words, it's your words against mine, mine against mine. So if you go to court, so you will have to establish this. But then so that's why it's very critical. So that's why in the disclosure document, normally the franchisor will have questionnaire, and that you will have to sign. So among the questions that a good franchisor will have is, has any of our staff made any earnings claims or guaranteed the success of this business, yes or no? If somebody from my company has promised you that, then you better put yes there.
But is this document standard? No, it's not, right?
No, it's not.
It's not
So that's
standard.
why again, as I said, not all lawyers are specialized in franchising. So you need to find a really good lawyer or a really good franchise consultant who is will be able to put all this for you to ensure that that your interests are protected. Now remember, the act is to protect the franchisees, whereas your agreement is to protect you as a franchisor. So you must have a proper wording, proper clauses to make sure that you are protected. So that's why most of the times when a prospective franchisee reads the agreement or even reviews the disclosure document, it's lopsided.
Exactly.
It favors the franchisor.
Exactly.
Of course it favors the franchisor. The franchisor will tell you, you cannot do this. You got to buy this from me. Now, even the early days of franchising in Malaysia, even the franchisors tell you, you got to buy this serviette from me. Can you imagine that? Now, of course, then after many years, then the local companies realize, hey, I'm not in the serviette producing business. I'm in this business. So normally they will authorize a supplier to do that or to print the serviettes on behalf or tissue papers on behalf of the franchisor. So the franchisor will tell the franchisees, you buy these products from our authorized suppliers. But proprietary products like ingredients, concoctions, which are proprietary to my brand name, you must buy them from me.
Yeah, fine. That's fair. Huh?
Okay? So that's how it is, basically. So that's why in franchising, you will have 3 types of suppliers. One is designated or proprietary suppliers. Those are me. You must buy this chicken. You must buy these ingredients from me.
Even the call cards and the serviettes are to get from your supplier.
It can be from my authorized suppliers.
I can't get my own printers and supplies.
Again, it depends sometimes on how strong the franchisors are.
Right,
sometimes a strong franchisors will have all these commissaries, will have all these suppliers system, within their franchise system, and tells you, Anand, these things are from my suppliers. You buy this from my suppliers.
Okay, so even if I were to be able to get someone cheaper, I have to go back to the agreement, which has stipulated that these are the
exactly.
vendors.
But sometimes our suppliers, they're also not good. Not good in the sense they go and kacau you. Hey, how much are you getting from Affandy? Oh, I'm the supplier. I'm the supplier to Affandy. I can sell this cheaper to you. Then so that's why, remember I mentioned, a good franchisor will normally have a strong agreement, supply agreement between him and his suppliers, so that his suppliers do not undercut him.
Right.
Because in the franchising, a franchisor is allowed to have a certain margin. Now, in the disclosure document, a good franchisor will disclose this. We are having some discounts from some suppliers, and it's our prerogative, our discretion to share these discounts, savings with you or not. I don't have to tell you how much discounts I'm getting, but if I do get it,
obviously,
I can share this with you.
Right.
Example that I'm selling you to you a mineral water, at RM1. I get it from to you. I'm supplying to you because I have a brand there, right? Imagine I get it from the supplier at 50 cents. I can sell that to you max at RM1 because the market price is RM1, regardless of brand. Example, regardless of brand, mineral water RM1. But the moment I sell to you at $1.10, you'll be questioning me already. Hey, Affandy, how come your mineral water is 10 cents more expensive than the market? Will you be happy?
Of course not.
Now that will give you the avenue, that will give you the opportunity to violate the terms, because it doesn't make sense. So you will go to all this, you go to those supermarket, whatever, find the cheapest. And sometimes all these supermarkets will have promotions.
Right.
Jualan Rahmah, Hari Jumaat, 1 dozen is like 80 cents, So I'll come to you. Look, this mineral water, even though it's different brand, but it's mineral water, I can get it at 80 cents per bottle. You sell it to me at $1.10. You do not want to go into that situation. So as long as I sell to you at RM1, whatever market, I'm still okay. But then again, being a franchisor, being a good father, being a good parent, I do not want to take advantage of you. I shouldn't. But I still want to make some money. So I get it 50 cents, I sell to you at, say, 80 cents. That still gives you that savings of 20 cents. In other words, if you go to the market and buy at 80 cents, at RM1, you say, oh, bagus lah. Then it makes sense that I buy from you. So that's how it should be. But in Malaysia, a lot of these things, especially, do not happen. The local franchises tend to take advantage of the local franchises. They tend to use the franchises as their dumping ground.
Yeah.
So that's
ATMs.
Yeah, ATMs. So that's why franchising, sometimes a lot of people are, they say, oh, I do licensing lah, because licensing I can do whatever I like, but franchising, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. So again, in both parties, both sides. So that's what a lot of people tend to, okay lah, let's do this. You see, let's be on a lose situation, lose lah. You can buy things there. So that's why they tend to use licensing, because from them, they use licensing because it's meant to be loose. Now, what's licensing? In a way, in a sense, see, licensing is like you have a driving license. JPG doesn't tell you what car you should drive. You have a laptop. As long as you use original Windows operating system, that's licensing.
Okay.
So Gates doesn't care what laptop you have. But if Gates tell you, hey, you must use a certain type of laptop, now that's franchising already. See, control. So that's why. So the key word between franchising and licensing is control. So the moment you have control over something, over the business, or how the person conducts your business, that falls into franchising already. Confirm punya. Mesti masuk franchising already. So that's why a lot of this licensing agreement out there, actually they are a franchising in disguise. And if somebody complains about them, or the licensee complains to the ministry can take action against these people.
But if I want to really get into the franchise business, what are the costs? There must be some hidden. Would there be some hidden costs somewhere?
No, simply because you have. That's what the disclosure document is all about.
Okay.
The disclosure document will tell you, example, there are 3 types of investment in franchising. Number 1 is what you call it the initial franchise fee. The initial franchise fee is the amount that you pay to obtain the right to operate the business. It's like you pay for the use of the brand name.
Right.
So that's franchise fee.
Right.
You pay a certain amount, a fixed amount. Now that amount is not that franchise fee is not the same as royalty. Franchise fee is a one-off payment. In other words, franchise fee is like the fee that you pay me to teach you how to set up this business. Now, if you're a franchisor and you have such 30 years of experience in the business, how much franchise fee do you want to put for your trials and errors? It's priceless. All your experience of doing a business is priceless. Right? All the errors you've made over the last... People only see that, jadi, right? People see that only. People don't see your failures. How many times you fall down, people don't see that. How many times you have to get up, people don't see that. But you have to put a price to that. Can you imagine today I come to you, Anand, I want to set up a language center. I'm a stranger to you. Will you teach me how to set up a language center? Okay, of course, if we just meet, you will tell me in brief terms, in general, okay, you do this, you do that. But then I start asking detailed questions. What about syllabus? What about the books? Where do I find these books? What about the techniques? Oh, hang on, Stephanie. Pay me 100,000, I will teach you all this. Can you see that? So that's something like a franchise fee. In other words, that franchise fee is like you pay me something so that you don't repeat my mistakes.
Correct.
So that franchise fee is the fee for my mistakes. Then you have what you call it the initial investment. The initial investment is all these things like your renovation cost, equipment, machinery and equipment. Will you be having a point of sale system? Will you be having a CCTV?
But wouldn't this be subsidized by the franchisor, or it's all borne by the franchisee?
It's all borne by the franchisees. But there are companies which subsidize this.
But if I want to do that, then I really don't have the amount in hand. Can I get financing for
Yeah,
this?
you definitely can. You can go to there are government agencies like Pernas, which provides financing to prospective franchisees. But of course, you have to fulfill certain criteria. They are like banking, they are like financial institution. They will do a credit score. But before they do a score on you, on rating on you as a franchisee, your CTOS, your secrets, you must clear all these things. They will do a rating on the franchising companies, the franchisor first. They want to make sure that is this company stable? Because if they give loans to your franchise to my franchises, if I'm not stable, what would happen? There is SME Bank, there is a CGC, and even main banks like CIMB and Mlim Banking, they give all this basically. Yeah, so there are. But then again, the banks will have their own criteria, so you will have to fulfill a certain criteria. Then you will have to look how much money do I need to fork out, when it comes to buying this concept. Often, normally, the banks will not give you a 100% loan. Typically, they will give you between 70 to 80%. So then that's why the franchise fee often the banks will not finance your franchise fee. You will have to come up with your own funds with this franchise fee. Yeah. So you will have the first investment is your initial franchise fee. That could be in the region of between 50,000 ringgit, on the average, to even a few 100,000 ringgit, depending on certain brand names. Certain brand names will have a higher franchise fee. The more established the brands, the more franchise fee they command. Then you have your initial investment, which I mentioned just now, is your renovation cost. Sometimes even your rental deposit. It could be 3+1, it could be 2+1. Yeah. Now imagine certain locations will command again a higher rental deposit if it's a type A mall. Can you imagine? You go by the square feet. Some malls have a higher. Then you have your machinery and equipment. All these things basically. Then the third investment you need to have is your working capital. A good franchisor will always tell you, Anand, you need a working capital of between 6 months minimum to 1 year. Again, depending on the type of business you have. Now, what's working capital? Your rental. Can you imagine? After paying the franchise fees and paying the rental deposits, and you open the shops, you don't even have the money to buy stocks from your franchisor. So you need a working capital to pay rental for the next 6 months to 1 year. Assuming that the business is not doing well, can you sustain for the next 6 months? You need working capital to pay your staff's salary. You need working capital to pay utilities. But often, a lot of local companies, they do not, now you mentioned hidden costs, they don't tell their prospective franchises about these working capital requirements. Because they do not want to make the total investment so huge.
Too costly.
Right. But often, they also don't understand the concept of working capital. Often, this working capital is basically to tell you, Anand, do you have this savings somewhere in your bank that if the business is not doing well? Example, suddenly we go into COVID situation. For the next 3 months, nobody can go out and frequent your shop. You still have to pay rental for 3 months. Imagine that rental is 15,000 per month. And that's 45,000 for the next 3 months. Imagine if we are COVID, touch wood, yeah, for the next 3 months. And then your staff, can you imagine you are having an F&B concept or restaurant business, you have 10 staff. Minimum salary is 1,700. That's 17,000. 30,000 on the average per month, plus your utilities time, that's by 6 months. That 180,000. Anand, do you have 180,000 savings in your account? So being a good franchisor, I should tell you this. I shouldn't just by looking at, okay, good, you just pay me the franchise fee, and then, okay, let's get started, And suddenly when you get started, and then you realize, oh no.
This is happening though, isn't it?
Yes.
The franchisors just, you pay me the money, I receive your fee. You now have the franchise, you can now use my brand and use my system. I do not really care whether you
survive, you make it, or you don't make it.
Right. You really paid me.
Exactly. Yeah, of course. Of course, the agreement says I don't guarantee your success, right?
Correct.
But being a good franchisor, what good does it do to you if one by one your franchise outlets or your franchises fail the business? They close down one by one. Your image, your brand.
Okay, but what if, sorry, but I don't want to seem dark. But what if I'm one of those fellas that I really don't care? It's just for me a legitimate way of taking someone else's money. I have this, you get my franchise, you have the right to do it. I have it all disclosed, you already agreed. I do not guarantee you success.
Sure.
And if you do close down, that's your own lookout. I know, but if I were a serious player, I would, as much as possible, I would also like to interview the franchisee.
Exactly.
Not anybody is going to come and be my franchisee.
Exactly.
Because you may not have the sufficient funds to sustain them. But what if I were just one of the players there? I'm just there for short term and collect money.
We have a lot of these people in the market. So that's why the franchisee needs to know his rights. What are his rights? So again, end of the day, again, when things do not go according to what have been promised, that the franchisor should deliver. Of course, the franchisee can take legal actions against the franchisor. But then again, doing the due diligence right beforehand is very critical. So that's why often I always, when people come to me, Affandy, I want to buy a franchise, I always often do your own research, DYOR, do your own research. Is the brand a good brand name? You just do not look at the numbers. Often you get excited. You get excited about the business. And often the franchisors put fire to that. You see this outlet, this Affandy outlet. 6 months, you tengok dia dah bawa kereta apa? Dia dah bawa Audi. Wah, so that's how they sell the franchise in Malaysia. You see, wah, you nampak. And again, as I said, so you have to be cautious. You have to talk to other people. Now, in the past, in the disclosure document, the franchisor must list all the outlets, whether it's his own outlets, corporate outlets, or his franchise outlets, or his so-called licensed outlets. He must list those outlets. Why are those listings critical? So that will allow the potential franchisee to visit these outlets, or if there are phone numbers in the listing, they can call. Hey, Anand, how are you? Sorry to disturb you. I'm Affandy. I'm thinking of buying this franchise. If you don't mind, can I ask questions from you? How long have you been this brand's franchisee for? Anand will, oh, you jangan beli ni franchise lah, memang tak boleh buat duit lah, tipu lah semua. Immediately Anand will, there goes it. Wow. Tell me more about it. Can we meet up, And Anand will tell all the stories, good stories about.
Wait, hang on.
But now that listing is not there.
Okay.
So that listing is not there. The present disclosure document is much more simplified. There's no listing. So this falls, the onus of doing this due diligence falls back on you. So you have to so in other words, caveat emptor, buyers beware. You do not accept whatever the franchisor tells you. You have to do your own research. You have to go to SSM, do a company research on this company. And don't just buy that 15 ringgit, buy a full report, spend a little. See, a lot of these things, a lot of people do not do this. Can you imagine you want to invest in a 2 million ringgit business, but you do not want to spend some money on this due diligence? You can buy this report, Seacrest. You can go, CITOS. You can go to SSM. So you spend less than 1,000 ringgit to have a proper due diligence. And if the CITOS report says, oh, there's a 3 litigation against this company, you can raise that issue with me, Affandy. Of course, without telling me where you get the information from, oh, there's a litigation against you. Can you tell me more about it? So you see my response lah. Oh, that litigation is already in the Court of Appeal. We've won at the High Court. On the Court of Appeal is being pending. By right, that information should be disclosed in my disclosure document. Case Affandy against Anand. High Court, Affandy won. Blah, blah, blah. Just say, mention, this is the court finding. It doesn't say I won lah, say court finding, blah, blah, blah. Then, Court of Appeal, Anand versus Affandy, Anand appeal. Betul tak? Pending. So, but often, this information is not being disclosed to the public, to the prospective franchise. Because now you understand why a lot of franchisors do not want to do franchising? Because they didn't want to disclose. So it's like a prospectus, you see? But the franchise, the people buying the franchise also do not understand why this disclosure document is critical. They think.
I think then, sorry to interrupt, but I think then it's because there's a lot of education that needs to be done.
Oh yeah, definitely.
To both the franchisor, the to-be franchisors and the franchisees.
That's right.
Okay. I'm afraid we have run out of time.
Sure.
But I would really love to know. Maybe perhaps you could have another second episode session with you.
Sure.
Because there are a lot more questions now in my mind that I would like to ask.
Sure.
It has been a very enlightening session with you.
Thank you,
Affandy. There's so many things that we have not realized when it comes to franchising.
It is, yeah.
I get confused between licensing and franchising.
Exactly.
Thank you for clearing that up with me. But I think what is needed now is for this information to be disseminated to people who are interested.
Sure.
Perhaps we could have a little symposium to educate these people.
Sure.
So thank you so much for being here with us. I'm so sorry. I know you would love to tell us more, and I
Thank
would
you.
love to find out more.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit heavy in the head now, trying to absorb everything that you have said. Some of them are lost somewhere behind.
Sure.
So thank you so much for all the valuable information. We're just touching the surface.
Yeah.
We hope to be able to get you back with us again
Sure.
so that we can actually delve deeper into it.
Sure.
So thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
viewers,
Yep.
for watching us with us today. We will let you know when Affandy will be available to drive faultless to delve deeper into the topic. And if you'd like to get to know more about it, you might like to contact us. Thank you so much, Encik Affandy.
Thank you. Honor. Thank you so much. My
All
pleasure.
right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.